Gentlemen, what is going on today? My name is Ryan Mickler, and I am the host and the founder of the Order of Man podcast and movement. I want to welcome you here and, of course, welcome you back if you've been with us for any amount of time. You know what we're doing here, guys. We're reclaiming and restoring masculinity. It's growing. The trend, anyways, is growing to disregard, to undermine, to uproot, to redefine masculinity at every step. And I think it's dangerous. I think it's a very dangerous precedent that society in general is setting. And it's up to you and me and other strong and courageous, capable, bold men to reverse the trend, to reverse the tide. So that's what we're doing here. We've got this podcast. We've got our exclusive brotherhood, the Iron Council. We've got our social media platforms and outlets. So we've got a book, Sovereignty, the Battle for the Hearts and Minds of Men. So we're spreading the good word through all of these mediums and platforms. I only ask that you share it. All right. If you've ever gotten any value when it comes to being a better father, husband, business owner, community leader, et cetera, then I only ask that you share the work that we're doing here, whether it's the podcast or the book or the social media platforms or whatever. One quick announcement before I get into your questions. This week, we have our legacy event coming up. That's going to be held September 23rd to the 26th, 2021 here on my property in Maine. This is our first one in Maine, our first legacy father-son event for boys between the ages of 8 to 15 and their fathers. We only have 4 spots as of yesterday morning, only 4 left. We have 20 guys come out with their boy or boys, and that's filling up very, very quickly. So if you want to know more about what we're doing over 3.5 days with you and your son, then head to orderofman.com/legacy, orderofman.com/legacy. All right. With that said, guys, this is the Ask Me Anything, where I attempt to answer your questions. These questions are coming from Instagram. Now, guys, I know you're so used to having Kip here, and normally he would be, but this is our 3rd week in a row where we just haven't been able to work out our schedules. But that's the power and the beauty of having 2 of us to do these Ask Me Anythings. If he needs to cover for me, he'll do that, which he did a couple of weeks ago. If I need to cover for him, I can ride this thing solo. And so as much as I would like to have Kip back, and I'm sure you would as well, I'm pretty sure he's coming back next week. All right. So you're just going to have to bear with it, bear with me, and get my perspective, not necessarily mine and his. So again, these are coming from Instagram. I had solicited these questions about a week ago, and I got through last week a bunch of them, but we got a bunch more, and we got some very good questions in here. So I'm just going to jump right into it. All right, here we go. Number 1, the Band of Bros. He says, I find it hard to focus on a task sometimes as I have so much to do with very little spare time. What is your best advice to remedy this problem? Really appreciate your content, by the way. So we're talking about focusing on a task at hand. Number 1, I think you have to have the mindset of resolve and resolution, that you're not going to move on to anything else until this gets done and taken care of, whether it's a project or a task or an assignment or something at work or something at home, a to-do list item, that you just have the mindset that you're not going to move on to anything else until this thing gets done. And that's going to get you through not wanting to do it, being distracted, wanting to do something else, priorities changing, if you have the right mindset. Number 2, eliminate the distractions. It's very, very important that you eliminate the distractions. You know, we've got these phones and we've got notifications and gadgets and gizmos and people clamoring for our time and attention and energy. And we've got these to-do lists, and our environments are so cluttered and clustered that it's very easy to look at the bright, shiny object and see what's next and want to move on to the next thing. Don't do that. Okay. Get rid of those distractions, and you know what's distracting you. So, and if you don't, start documenting it, start writing it down so you know what you're getting distracted by, and then you can eliminate and put the systems in place so they're not distracting you. Number 3, and here's my final tip for you, although there's significantly more than this. Just don't do so much. Like, we do so much every single day. We're inundated with everything that we're doing and all the work and all the tasks and all the assignments and all the opportunities. And we have fear of missing out if we happen to miss a conference or an event or an experience that one of our friends or somebody is hosting and holding. And we do so much. Stop doing so much. Even within this business, I don't want to be lazy. I don't want to say that. although at times I tend to be, I want to do the least amount of work for the highest possible return. That could be within my family dynamic or here within the work dynamic. But your goal should be not to be busy, but to be efficient and effective as possible. And sometimes that means that you need to do less. And that is the Pareto principle. If you guys are familiar with that, it's the 80-20 rule, that 80% of your results will come through 20% of your efforts. But most of us spend so much time focusing on the 80% of the work that yields the 20% that we don't have time for the 20 that yields the 80. So you really, really need to inventory your day, inventory how you spend your time and your activities, and ask yourself, is this the 80% non-important work that I'm doing right now? Or is this the 20% extremely hyper important work that I need to be focusing on so that I can produce the best results possible? Ask yourself that, document your answers to those questions. And I think you'll start being more efficient, more effective with less time. And I think that'll help. All right, there you go. This one comes from SD_Booker. What's your take on quote unquote, all men are created equal versus quote, social equality? Well, I think there's some conflated terms here. All men are created equal versus social equality. I actually think in the context of this question, those are one and the same. I think what you might be referring to is social equity. So there's equality under the law, for example, and then there's social equality, all men are created equal, and then there's social equity. And those are different things. And it's very, very important that you and I understand the distinction between the two. It's also very important that we understand the word games that are being played with terms like equality and equity, because they mean different things to different people. But generally, here's what it means. Equality is that we are all equal under the law or equal under God, that we all have certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That applies to everybody, right? That applies to gay, straight, black, white, purple, green, transgender, everybody. We all have equal rights under the law. And what's interesting is you have a lot of people that are talking about, for example, systematic racism right now. Think about those terms. Systemic. Sorry, I said that incorrectly. Systemic racism. What is systemic racism? Well, systemic means that there's systems in place that are inherently racist. Well, that actually isn't true. Now, I'm not saying that racism doesn't exist, but I would like somebody who claims that there is systemic racism to show me what laws, what systems are written or on the books that are racist, because those have all been done away with. Okay. So all of us are equal under the law and we're equal under God. Those are the rights. Those are the founding principles of this country, the United States. We haven't always lived up to those ideals. Racism certainly still exists. I would say it's far less than it's ever been in any time in history. It's not to diminish anything that anybody has experienced, but that's the reality of it. Okay, now we have this other term over here called social equity. Okay, equality, equal under the law, equal under God, certain unalienable rights. Then we have social equity. Okay, that is the end game. Equity. So you have equality, everybody starts at the same place and has the same opportunities. And then you have social equity, which is that everybody ends at the same place. Well, in order for that to happen, the game has to be rigged. And that's actually systemic, right? If there's laws and there's rules on the books that rig the game so that the end result is that everybody experiences the same outcome, then that's actually the real systemic problem. Okay, not everybody's going to end at the same destination, because some people are smart, some people are dumb, some people have some opportunities, other people don't. Some people have gifts and abilities and talents and skill sets that other individuals don't. Some people have different desires, different things they want out of life. Like there's no way that we could ever end up in the same place. Here's a very micro experiment. If I were to take $20,000 and I could just miraculously give it to every adult in the United States of America, $20,000, it would be my bet that within the next, I would say 3 to 5 years, maybe even shorter, that the bulk of that $20,000 that you received, or all of us received individually, would be in the hands of the same people it is now. Because they have the skill sets, they know how to build wealth, they have the financial acumen to be able to build and add value and do what it is to create wealth. But in order for that to keep that from happening, there's a system that needs to take from those individuals who are doing better than the ones who are not. That's systemic. So there's social equity and there's social equality. I believe that all men are created equal, should be under the law, and certainly are under God. But I don't buy into this social equity stuff, because it means that the system needs to be rigged. And everybody who's complaining about systemic problems now, you think there's systemic problems now. If you want everybody to end up in the exact same place, there's going to be a lot more systemic problems later, because the game has to be rigged in order to achieve that outcome. And I'm not interested in the game being rigged. All right. There's my soapbox on social equality versus social equity. All right. Let's see. So this one comes, Phoenix of the Sunrise. How did you learn how to start a business? If taught, who would you recommend learning from? So once something goes from a hobby to making a living, deciding and contacting wholesalers. Okay, he's just asking about little business stuff. So how did I learn? I followed people who were good in business, primarily in the financial planning world, because in 2010, 2011, somewhere in there, I started my own financial planning practice. And I learned from individuals who had their own financial planning practices. I hired coaches, I hired mentors. I even hired a consulting firm to help me start my business and get things in the right order and help me with marketing and doing all that. Now, what have I done since then? I've learned from a lot of different places. I've gone to conferences. I've invested in learning and education. I've also done a lot of trial and error. And I've been in this particular business, Order of Man, for a little over 6 years now. And so I've learned a lot about how business works and taxes and marketing and the financials of the business. But the biggest thing is to find people who are doing what you want to be doing and hire them. Hire them to consult you, to coach you, to mentor you, to teach. Because look, you can do it on your own. You can figure out all of this stuff on your own. I figured a lot of it out on my own. But I'm telling you right now, there's a price to everything. All right. There's a price to doing it on your own. And there's a cost to everything. There's a cost of doing it on your own, but there's a cost of hiring a mentor as well. You know, if you spend 10 grand to hire somebody to teach you about a particular element of your business, well, it's $10,000. You might say, well, that's a lot of money. Or you might say it's a little. I don't know your financial situation. But let's say you're on the end where you say, oh, 10,000 is a lot of money, so I'm going to do it on my own. Well, doing it on your own, there's a cost of doing it on your own. Yeah, you don't have to write the $10,000 check, but it's going to take you a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of hard-learned lessons. And it actually might cost you 50 or 100 or $1 million or $10 million over the course of your business to actually go out and do it on your own. So if I'm going to look at the cost of things, I'm going to look at what's going to be the least expensive, most effective method for improvement, whether we're talking about business, physical health, your relationship, whatever it may be. You want to do it in the least cost prohibitive manner possible, the best investment, the best rate of return. And for me, it's proven to be hiring coaches. So do what you can, learn what you can, always be learning, continue to be a student, and then find those individuals who are doing what you want to do in your line of work or have experience coaching others in your line of work, and gleaning from them, learning from them, hiring them to share with you the ins and the outs and the goods and the bads and the pitfalls to avoid, because it's going to be significantly less expensive when you do it that way. This one is from TKR. Novakics or something like that. I don't know. He says, what are your sales number per month for your merch? And what was the biggest thing you did to get there other than hiring Sean as a coach? He's talking about Sean Whalen, because Sean Whalen was an early coach and mentor of mine. Him and I still communicate on a regular basis, and I still learn a lot from him. I'm inspired by him every day. I'm not going to get into my sales numbers. Let's just say that I would say probably 250 to 300% up over what I did around the same time over the past couple of years. And the reason it is, Frank, here's the bottom line. The reason those numbers are up, because I focused on it. That's, if you strip everything else away, all of the little tactics and the strategies and hiring the designers and getting the right apps and the right programs and investing in the right space and having my son fulfill orders, all of that stuff, those are all tactics. But if you strip all of that away, the reason that it's up so much over the past year is because I focused on it. And what you focus on is always going to improve. It's going to get better. You're going to get better at it. Whether it's things that you're doing positively, focusing on, like building a business, communicating with your wife, dating her, spending quality time with your kids, getting in shape. Those are all, I would say, quality, wholesome things to focus on. But also, if you focus on things that you shouldn't be focusing on, drinking, drugs, alcohol, pornography, all of this other stuff, making poor decisions, stepping out on your wife, throwing your life away, you're going to get better at that too, because you're focused on that. We're hardwired as humans to get better at whatever we focus on. So focus on what's important to you. Now, what is the biggest thing that I did to get to the point where I am right now? I just told you, it's focusing on it. The other gentleman was asking about hiring a coach, hiring a mentor. I haven't hired a coach specifically for growing my merchandise business, but I have been very observant with what other people are doing. We're starting to dabble now with ads, and I've seen what other people are doing. I've brought different designers on. We had a fulfillment warehouse that was doing it at one point, and I didn't enjoy that experience. In fact, I would say it was a bad experience. It was expensive. They were making errors, and I just hated for it to be outside of my control. And so we brought it in-house, and my son started fulfilling orders. In fact, him and I fulfilled, 30 or 40, even just this morning, which cuts into my day, but I enjoy it. I spend time with him, and he's learning and he's growing, and we're having conversations, and we're growing this thing together. So a lot of little strategies, but ultimately it's the focus. And if you're focused on it, then you're going to get better at it. It's going to improve. And then you'll figure out where all the little gaps and whatnot are. Okay. All right. This one comes from Glenn A. Cath one. Some of these names are a little hard for me to understand what they are, but he says, are you familiar with the work of Dr. Robert Moore? He's best known for a book titled King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. It's an examination of the male psyche. Very interesting reading. Jives well with many of the folks you've interviewed on and your ideals as well. Yeah, I am familiar with that book. I will say the book King, Warrior, Magician, Lover is one I was introduced to years and years ago. And it's been years. And in fact, it's up there somewhere. Looks like some of my stuff is falling down. But it is up there. It's been a while since I've read it. But the cool thing that I remember, one thing in particular, is that they have the King, the Warrior, the Magician, Lover, and then in addition to that, Robert Moore also talks about the counter to those. So I think the king is the prince, and the magician is maybe the jester or the joker. I don't particularly remember, but he talks about the immature version and the mature version of each male persona. I think is the best word that I would use. And we all have the ability to be a king, warrior, magician, lover to varying degrees, but some of us are going to be more on the king side. Some of us are going to be more on the magician side, and all have their value. But I really enjoyed the book where it talked about learning what your persona is, what you naturally gravitate towards, so that you can learn how to use it effectively and not slip into the immature version of each of the personas. So again, very quick synopsis. It's been years since I read it, but I remember it being a very great book and very insightful. This one's from SOMD Kilgore. He says, when do you believe men and society began our steady decline towards the current state? What do you believe was the pivotal catalyst that paved the path? I don't know if it was like at this date, at this time, and this year, this is the moment it all started to go downhill. It's happened gradually. It's happened over time. It's that old adage of boiling a frog. If you throw him in a bucket of hot water, he's going to jump right out. But if you throw him in a bucket of lukewarm water and gradually warm up the temperature, he'll stay in there and cook himself to death. I think that's what's happening now. And, I make comments on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all the places. And occasionally people reach out and say, Ryan, that's not important. We don't need to be talking about that. We should be talking about something else. Well, it may not be important to you now because the temperature is not high enough, right? But if we ignore it and we overlook it and we say that isn't important or we shouldn't be discussing that because we should be more concerned with other things, well, okay, that's gradually letting the temperature turn up and up and up and up and up. If the powers that be came out directly and said, here's what we're going to do. So let's talk about gun legislation, for example. If the powers that be came out and said, we're going to pass a bill that says that Americans can no longer own firearms. Well, how do you think that would pan out? Obviously, that's not going to work because you have millions and millions of gun owners and you have hundreds of millions of firearms circulating within the United States. That's not going to happen. Okay, but if you gradually start introducing gun legislation like capacity on magazines and certain types of modifications to firearms, and nobody can build firearms anymore. And okay, now you can't own this. You can own all these, but you can't own this one. And you have to register. Now, these are little things that get passed. And I'm not asking you to chime in on the gun debate right now. I'm using this as an example. Okay, these little things over the past 100 plus years have been instituted and implemented and legislation has been passed. And so many of us are like, oh, what's the big deal? That's not a big deal. We'll let that slide. We'll let that slide. We'll let that slide. And then holy shit, down the road, you realize you actually aren't as free as you think you are. It's the same thing with the mask mandates with COVID. How many of us have said, well, it's just a mask. It's just, what's the big deal? That's not limiting your freedom. No, it's not really limiting our freedom in the grand scheme of things. Can you wear a mask? Sure you can. But what does that lead to? Okay, it leads to more legislation, more restriction. Now we're talking about vaccination cards, and there's going to be a bunch of people say, well, what's the big deal? It's just a card. Like, you should have it. Okay, well, what does that lead to? So I'm not sure it was just one pivotal moment. There is one moment I want to talk about, but more than that, it's just been a steady, slow decline and assault on our way of life and our freedoms. And we need to be vigilant. And we need to be aware, and we need to realize that everything matters. Even the little things that are seemingly insignificant, it matters because it's what it leads to next. It's moving that Overton window to a place that we really, most of us, I believe, don't want to go. There is one moment, and it wasn't a specific moment, but an era in the Industrial Revolution. What ended up happening is that the fathers left the farms. They left the houses, they went into the cities, and they started working in the factories. And because they weren't at home to teach little Timmy, Tommy, and Julia, our young men and our young women lost their father. They saw him maybe in the morning, maybe at night, and that's it. I just did an interview with a gentleman who is one of the foremost authorities on homeschooling. And he talked about that when we started shipping our kids off to these government institutions to have them indoctrinated into something that we may not totally agree with. And then mom and dad left the home, went into the workforce. Little Susie and Tommy and Timmy are in these government indoctrination schools or camps. And what ended up happening is we separated the children from their fathers and their mothers. Okay, and that's a problem, both literally and figuratively. The more that the government can separate kids from their parents, the better equipped they'll be to indoctrinate these little impressionable minds into something that they would like to do rather than the parents teaching them the values that, and here's one thing people say, well, Ryan, you're sending your kids off to school and you're saying they're being indoctrinated. Aren't you indoctrinating your kids by not sending them? Yes, 100%. That's exactly right. I'm teaching them a doctrine and a set of principles and systems and values and ideas and concepts and beliefs that I think will serve them. That's indoctrination. Indoctrination is not inherently bad. It's not inherently wrong. In fact, that's your job as a parent, to teach your children a doctrine, concept, principles, values that will serve them on later in life. So then people say, well, what's the difference between that and public school? The difference is it's my responsibility as a father. That's the difference. It's not your responsibility to indoctrinate my children. It's not the government's job to indoctrinate my children. It's my job. That's my authority. That's my responsibility. So I think we answered your question and maybe created a bunch more. All right. Let's go to Double Hall Paul. Hey, fellas, Ryan and Skip. I like that he called him Skip instead of Kip. I'm not sure if that was a joke or just a slip, but Skip has a nice ring to it. He says he's on day 43 of 75 hard. Diet is the hardest part for me. Water was one of the hardest parts for me. Just throw that little disclaimer in there. He says, what is your favorite clean eating snack and meal? I'm looking to expand my options. Look, I'm pretty boring. I'm a pretty boring guy. I like meat and vegetables. Yeah, you can't go wrong, right? With a steak or venison or elk or moose, bear. We've tried it all. We have everything: ham, pork, chicken, all of it. And then vegetables, whether it's asparagus, green beans. My wife loves to can and preserve. So we all have green beans and zucchini and squash, and especially where it's becoming spring and summer right now, we always have fresh vegetables. We just tried fiddleheads for the first time last night. If you haven't tried fiddleheads, they're like, my youngest son, he's 5. He calls them curly green beans because that's what they look like. And that's actually what they tasted like. But fiddleheads are delicious. So I vary the protein, whether it's, again, chicken, beef, turkey, venison, elk, moose, bear, like whatever you can get your hands on. I like the wild game if I can. If not, go to beef or chicken. And then we vary our vegetables: squash, zucchini, tomatoes, green beans, lots of peas, carrots, and then, of course, curly green beans, also known as fiddleheads. All right. Let's find a couple more here. How are we doing on time? We're about halfway through. Okay. I'm going to try to find some good ones here. Okay. So this is from Gabriel Pazo Lopez. He says, what are some hints on cultivating patience? I'm 28, and until 25, I didn't realize how I was wasting my youth. I'm now on the path of becoming a real man, soon to join professional diving school so I can become a scuba welder. Very cool. But said school is months away and years until I finish it. As someone who can only see the past as a pile of wasted time, the wait is sometimes unbearable. So, I like, this is Andy Frisella's concept with Real AF podcast. Andy Frisella in First Form, of course, he's become a friend over the years. And one thing that the term that he uses that I actually really like is aggressive patience. Aggressive patience. I believe that's what it is. If not, it's something along those lines. But aggressive patience, what does that mean? Well, it means that you're going to be patient in the results that you're going to experience, but you're going to be aggressive in the pursuit of those results. So if you're going to diving school, you say it's months away and it's years till I finish it. Well, yeah, it might be months away before you go to diving school. Okay, you got to be patient for the months that you have to wait. But in the meantime, you can be very aggressive on the tactics and strategies and tools and things that you're implementing in order to be prepared when that diving school comes up. I remember when I went to basic training, so that would have been the summer of 1999. It was very similar. I had graduated high school. I moved to a neighboring town and I went to a semester of college. And essentially I was just waiting for basic training to happen. Okay. But I wasn't just sitting around, because if you're sitting around, maybe you're being patient, but that is a waste of time. I was being aggressive in that moment because I remember running. I remember doing a lot of physical training. I was going to drill because I was in the National Guard. So I was learning from other soldiers who had gone through basic training. So I was doing everything that I possibly could to keep myself active and mentally and physically engaged so that when I went to basic training, I was completely ready for it. And I was ready for it. Me and 2 other guys, Jed and Tony, that I went to high school with, we went to basic training, and it was a very good experience for us. I saw a lot of guys who broke down and really struggled and had a hard time because they were sitting around doing, I don't know what they were doing when they should have been training and preparing for it. We weren't like that. We were ready to go because we are aggressive in our tactics and strategies. It's the very same thing with this podcast. I've been patient, and I will continue to be patient with the results that we experience here with Order of Man. We've had a breakout, I would say, year so far, 6 months almost. Well, it is because we're in June now. So we've had a breakout year with our level of guests. Well, I'm 6 years into this. This stuff didn't happen overnight. And so I realized that it's going to take time. It's going to take years and years and years and years of the grind and the hustle and the aggressiveness on the tactics and strategies. Eventually it'll happen. But in the meantime, I'm going to be very active towards running a good podcast, towards making sure I handle my finances correctly, to learning how to market more effectively, to learn from other individuals who have gone before me, so that when the opportunities present themselves, I will A, recognize them, and B, be ready to capitalize on those opportunities. So patient and aggressive in the tactics until you get to the results. So yeah, if you're sitting around doing nothing, just like, I guess I'm just going to wait, 2 months till I go to diving school. Yeah, that's a waste. And it would be easy to see why you're going to be so frustrated. Instead, say, okay, here it is, 2 months away, put it on the calendar. And in the meantime, what are the 10 tactics and strategies that you can be employing on a daily basis in order for you to be fully prepared when diving school presents itself? I hope that helps. Trying to find another good comment here. Here's one. This is from John. I'm going to butcher this name. Galcobert, I would say. John Galcobert. Galcobert, I think. Sorry, John. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I know I'm wrong. He says, if you're being disrespected or undermined in a sporting context by a coach, how would you deal with it? He says, I went back to play football this year, Gaelic football in Ireland, and despite enjoying it, I found the new coach finds the need to undermine me at every turn. So here's what I would say. Let's give you a little healthy dose of reality. It might be that you're not as good as you think you are. Now, I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm certainly saying that is worthy of consideration. Maybe he's actually not attempting to undermine you. Maybe he's actually attempting to coach you. And this is your ego getting in the way, saying, no, he's trying to undermine me. He doesn't know as much as me. And I've been doing this for a long time. And who is this new guy coming in? I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying you probably ought to examine whether or not that's what's actually happening, because it very well could be that it's your own ego getting in the way and you're assuming that it's him trying to undermine you, when in all reality, it might just be him trying to coach you. Now, it's been my experience that most people, not everybody, that most people mean well. Most people mean good. They want to do right. They want to serve, especially if they're coaching. They want to win, right? What do coaches want to do? They want to win. So they're going to do what they think is best to help the team win. That's the whole point of competitive sports, right? To improve and then to test yourself and beat the other team and get the feedback you need and get better. Okay. So I believe that most people want to do well and good, but I also believe that most people struggle with communication. So the desire they have to do right and well doesn't exactly align with their ability to communicate effectively. And I've personally found that if I can afford people some grace, that maybe, for example, my wife says something to me that, although true, was communicated poorly and puts me on the defensive. Now, I have a responsibility as the receiver of that message not to get defensive, but I'm just looking at her for a second. Or you want to switch the roles, right? Like, I may mean well in the marriage and our relationship and how much I care about her and want her to thrive, but the way that I deliver it doesn't quite land, or I'm a little too harsh or a little too abrasive, and it doesn't help anybody. So the desire and the ability don't quite match up. Maybe that's happening. But let's just say, hypothetically for a minute, that your coach is trying to undermine you. Well, you have a couple options here. You can attempt to be the best football player that you possibly can and get better and improve and listen, even though he's trying to undermine you. Help the team win, be a good teammate, try to improve your abilities, try to listen and try to do what you can do. That's one option. Or if you can't and he's undermining you, you guys don't get along, the other option is you could quit. And I don't think that's a great option. I've known people that have done that. Some think it's a good decision. Others have regretted those decisions. You know, only you can make that decision. I have personal friends, people that I know in high school, because I didn't play competitive sports outside of high school, but people that I know in high school who quit because they said the coach was, a dick. Same coach I had, I didn't feel that way, so personalities clash and they collide, and it's challenging and everything else. And you can use this as a learning opportunity, because you're going to have to deal with difficult people in life. Forget about just football, like life, the rest of your life, you're going to have to deal with difficult people. Maybe use this opportunity to learn how to deal with somebody you don't like or get along with. Or maybe you say, it's not worth it, and you can make that decision yourself. There was another question on here along the same lines, and I don't know where it is right now, but I'll paraphrase it, because this is one question I get a lot. And it was something like, along the lines of, how do you deal with people who don't agree with you with regards to your views on masculinity? And I think I touched on this last week. Guys, there's always going to be people that disagree with me. And I've never considered it my obligation, my responsibility to convince, to convert these people who don't see it the same way we do. Now, if somebody wants to have a real discussion with me, maybe we disagree on a certain point with regards to masculinity or the things I talk about here, and they don't agree, but they want to talk about it and they want to hash it out. I'm good with that. I actually like that, because I'm going to see things in a new light, and either I'm going to have a greater perspective I didn't have before, or I'm just going to strengthen my own position, and both are wins to me. But I've never felt the need to get into it and debate and argue and bicker and bitch and moan back and forth at each other with people who just don't want to see it the same way. I'm completely okay with that. And I think a lot of you need to get to that same point. Don't get so riled up and pissed off that other people don't see it your way, or they don't agree with you, or who cares? There's almost 8 billion people on the planet. And okay, so you have 5 people who don't like you, who hate you. I have more than that. But I have infinitely more people who do agree with me and who do like what I have to say and appreciate the fact that I'm willing to say it. And guess where I'm going to place my emphasis? On the people who feel inspired and motivated and compelled by what we're doing here. Excuse me. I'm not going to take a bunch of time to get a knockdown, drag out fight with somebody who doesn't see it my way. It's just a waste. Go back to the Pareto principle we were talking about earlier. That's what 80% of us focus on. I'm going to try to convert this guy. It's 80% of what we focus on 20% of the effort. Well, why not focus 80% of your time on the things that actually produce the biggest results, which is talking to the people who are inspired by you. That's not to say we need to create echo chambers, because I agree we should be talking with people who disagree. But if they just want to fight, no, I'm not interested in that. I don't care about that. And I don't see it as my job to do. So I do get a lot of questions well, how do you deal with? Usually when it's a how do you deal with question, the answer is you don't. Even if it's a family member, how do I deal with a family member who's, toxic? You don't deal with them. How do I deal with a family member who, refuses to be a good family member? You don't deal with that person. What are you going to say? What are you going to do that's possibly going to change their mind? If you feel like you're having to deal with it, it's long past just civil discourse, I think. This is from Welcome Home Farm Town, or TN. I don't know if that's town or Tennessee or something, but Welcome Home Farm TN. How do you inspire the younger generation to, quote, don't dream it, be it, to believe and become the person they want to be despite the naysayers and critics? See, we continue to bring the naysayers and critics up. And I think what we're doing is we're giving them too much weight. Acknowledge that there's going to be naysayers and there's going to be critics, but we don't need to place a bunch of emphasis on that. You're going to find that whether you're looking for it or not, it's going to be there. So let's just not worry about the naysayers and critics, because really they don't have any relevancy. Like this question here says, how do you inspire them to want to be the person they desire to be despite the naysayers? What do the naysayers have to do with anything? Are the naysayers going to pay my bills? Are the naysayers going to put the roof over me and my family's head? Are the critics going to be the one who are sharing this podcast and movement so it thrives and flourishes and we create good opportunities here? They don't have any relevancy at all. Zero relevancy. They're not paying your bills. They're not supporting your mission. They don't believe in you. They don't like you. In fact, if anything, what they're doing is they're actually not neutral. They're taking away. They're detracting. So no factor here, guys. Now, to answer the bulk of that question is, how do you inspire younger generations to believe and become the person they want to be? Is you show them by example, but then you also connect the dots. We need to do a better job. See, okay, here's another question people say all the time. Will you bring a quote unquote regular Joe on the podcast? Right? People say the numbers don't support it. The download numbers don't support it, but people say they want to hear from a regular guy they can relate with. Well, guys, everybody we've had on the podcast is a regular guy. Everybody on the podcast that we've had is a regular guy. They've just done things differently for longer, sustained periods of time, and they've become not regular, but extraordinary. Okay, but they were regular at some point. And people say, well, I don't resonate with that. Right. And that's the point that I want to make, is that we need to do a better job connecting the dots between where we are now and where we were. And I think one of the reasons that this particular podcast does so well, and a lot of the reason that you guys like what I have to share and you resonate with what we're doing here, is because you actually see me as a regular guy, which is accurate. I'm not extraordinary. I'm not any gifted with any talents or skill sets or wealth or connections or anything else that you don't have. Okay, I'm a pretty ordinary guy. I grew up, my mother raised me primarily with my sister on her own. Never really had to worry about food on the table or roof over her head. Although looking back now is probably closer than I had realized, but she always did a wonderful job making sure that wasn't a concern of ours. We grew up in a middle-class family, very, very small rural town in southern Utah. Joined the military, had a little bit of success in the military, had a little success when I left the military, but I bounced around from landscaping to pizza delivery to plumbing to electrical. I mean, I did it all until I finally started growing my financial planning practice, and now the podcast. And you guys, here you come, 6 years into this thing, and you're like, whoa, look at everything that Ryan's created. Like, he's doing amazing. He must be this amazing individual. I'm not. Okay, but one thing I feel like I do a pretty good job of is explaining to you that I'm not all that exceptional. And I don't do that as some sort of deprecating like humor or tactic. No, that's actually what I believe. And if I can do this, then you surely can. And I try to do a good job of explaining where I came from. So to go back to the question here, how do we inspire younger generations to be it, not just dream it? Be an example and then connect the dots. Let these kids know, hey, you know what? Yeah, your dad's not around. Guess what? My dad wasn't around. Man, a kid hears that and looks at you and thinks, man, this guy's ultra successful. And you just related it back to him or her and how they're living their life and how you lived your life. Like if a kid came to you, like let's say one of your kids you're coaching in a sports team and he doesn't have a dad around. Man, that's a great example to say, hey, you know what? I really appreciate how hard you work and how you step up to the plate and how you come ready to practice every day. That must be hard. I know your father's not around. You do this when appropriate, of course. And I just want you to know, like my dad wasn't around, or I'm dealing with the same thing. I dealt with the same thing you are, and I overcame it by doing X, Y, and Z. That's why you guys want to hear from regular Joes, is because you can't form the connection between these ultra guys like Goggins and Tim Kennedy and Jocko. Like, you don't see yourself being one of those people. I do, because I've been fortunate enough to talk with them. Those are regular guys, right? Jocko's not a superhuman. He's incredible. He's very disciplined, period. And all of us can do that. You can do that. I can do that. Everybody can do that. Andy Frisilla has built this incredible company, First Form. And he's got other businesses as well. And he's been ultra, ultra successful. He's not exceptional inherently. He's learned it, right? Like, he talks about a story of, for the first 10 years, making, $10,000 or whatever it is, and sleeping on piss-stained mattresses in the back of his store that he could barely afford. That's you. That's me. Like, he's not exceptional. He's trained himself to be that way. He's put himself around good people. He's been in the game long enough. He's learned a lot of valuable lessons. And because of that, now we look at him and think, oh, this guy must have it all figured out. He doesn't. And he never has. He's figuring it out. And he does a good job at it because he's earned it. And you need to earn it. And then we need to teach our kids. And when I say our kids, biological, but also kids in our community, how to earn it and how you overcame the same things that maybe they're dealing with. Let's find some more questions here. This comes from Fire and Iron Podcast. What are 3 non-negotiable rules? I think I talked about this one maybe last week. I don't know. I hope I'm not hitting on the same question. Maybe I'm answering the same questions I did last week. But non-negotiables, take a stand for what you believe in. Be unique, say it in a unique way, and be hyper-consistent. That's what I would say. Okay, here's a good one right here. This one's important because a lot of you guys have this question. So this one comes from Dad to Vid. He says, how to win back an ex after she claims to have moved on. Well, okay, so we need to frame this question in the right way because it's not framed the way it should be. How to win back an ex. Well, first, that language is not the right mindset to come from. Okay, because what you're going to end up doing, if you want to win back your ex, okay, what you're going to do is you're going to put on a little circus performance. That's what you're going to do. If I want to win somebody over or win somebody back, I'm going to put on this little circus performance. I'm going to be like that bear on the unicycle with a little dress on, and I'm going to go around, or like the little seal barking for snacks occasionally here and there. And that's what you're going to do in order to, quote, win her back or win her over. And then what you're actually going to do in the meantime is you're going to undermine what you're trying to accomplish, which is to gain trust, credibility, and authority with her. Okay, that's the problem. That's what so many of you guys do. Let me just do the little monkey dance and entertain her and bark when she tells me to. And then you're like, well, why doesn't she love me? Why is she out with this other dude or whatever? Yeah, because you're entertaining, but there's no value. There's no real tangible benefit and value that you add. So let's stop trying to win her back. First things first, let's reframe the entire question. Now here's a better way to say that. How do I earn her trust? How do I earn credibility? How do I earn authority? How do I earn influence in her eyes? That's better. Because again, if you're just doing a little circus monkey dance, like that's not going to do any of that. And that's what you need in order to reconcile the relationship you have with your wife. Now, she claims she's moved on. Maybe she has. We don't know. If she said she's moved on or has communicated that to you, this is hard, but I think you got to take that for what it is. And now what you need to do is you need to focus on improving yourself. I've done multiple podcasts. Go back in and type Order of Man, how to fix your marriage and fix yourself first. Those are 2 podcasts I did years ago. And I get into a very detailed analysis of what you can do if you find yourself in this situation. And lots and thousands of you do. I get your messages. But let's stop trying to win her back, or not win her back, like win her over, right? Just the term win is not appropriate here. Earn trust, authority, influence, credibility. And by the way, here's the beauty of this. Again, this is Dad to Vid. Here's the beauty of this. If she truly has moved on, and all the while you've been focusing on improving yourself and getting friends and developing skills and finding new hobbies and interests and activities and getting in shape, and you've done all of this and she's truly moved on, you're actually going to be in a better spot. This is a very sound strategy because regardless of the outcome, you're going to be better off. If you gain respect and admiration back from her, congratulations. That's amazing. If you don't, and she truly has moved on, you're going to be a great catch for the next woman to come into your life. So this is a foolproof plan. Focus on yourself, improve your abilities, develop new skills, get new hobbies, build new friendships. You're going to win, regardless of what happens. And if she truly has moved on and you do all that, that will even be less relevant. Not relevant, but less relevant. Okay? Do that. Go back and check those couple of podcasts. How to fix your marriage and fix yourself first. Let's see what else we got here. This one is from Yudi Masaki. To anyone who can help. Look, this is probably not like a great podcast question, but this is important. There's a lesson here outside of just the question. how can a foreigner join the U.S. Army? It's my dream, but I'm from Brazil. I still live here. Okay. The answer is go talk with a recruiter. That's the answer. Okay. There are people who do this for a living. They will give you the answers that you're looking for. And all you have to do is call and ask that question. Okay, now, so there's the answer. I want to answer the question. I don't know. Talk to a recruiter. This is exactly what they do. Okay, but here's the greater lesson. Guys, ask the right people the right questions. Okay, you don't need to ask somebody on social media how you can join the Army when there's a recruiter that literally it's their job to answer that exact question. I wanted to share this question with you because it's broader than just joining the military. And by the way, I commend you if you want to do that and you want to become a citizen. I don't know if you do or how that works. Again, go talk to a recruiter. I commend you. But let's make sure that we're using our minds as well. Like, okay, what's the path of least resistance? What's the path to get us to our answer? And it's to go to somebody who has the answer. And if there's somebody who has a job this comes to coaching too. How do I find a coach? Find the person who's doing what you want to do and then reach out to them and say, you're doing what I want to do. Will you coach me? I will pay you. I speak from experience, by the way. When I owned my financial planning practice, I was following a couple of guys, and one of the men I was following, his name is Jeff Rose, good financial sense, very, very good person. And so he was doing, I think he was doing maybe a podcast at the time. I think he was doing a lot on YouTube, but the way that he was marketing his financial planning practice was very interesting to me. And so I reached out to him and I said, hey, Jeff, I sent an email, and guess where his email was? Right on his website. Okay, don't make this harder than it needs to be. So I reached out to Jeff and I'm like, hey, Jeff, I'm a follower of yours. I admire what you're doing. You're doing some cool stuff. I've really wanted to do something similar in my financial planning practice. Do you offer any coaching services? I'd be willing to pay and invest in you training me on some of this stuff. He messages me back very quickly and he says, actually, I do offer coaching and here's what it would be. And it was a couple $100 or something like that to get on the phone with him. And I said, great, I'll do it. Okay. This is like one of my early experiences with coaching. I said, great, I'll do it. Get on the phone with him. He shares some very valuable insight that helps me get the podcast for my financial planning practice launched, and how he does what he does and why he does it this way and why he didn't do it the other way and some of the lessons he learned. And he was very valuable in coaching me early on, which then ended up morphing into Order of Man. And the benefits from that single conversation for a couple $100 are invaluable, incalculable. I can't even calculate the value that came from spending a couple $100. Okay. Later on, I come to realize, and he shared this with me. He's like, Ryan, when you reached out to me, I hadn't done any one-to-one coaching on that particular subject. You were my very first client. And still, it was extremely valuable. I was kind of the guinea pig with what he wanted to do. I think he does more of that now, but there's some valuable lessons. First, I reached out to the right person. I asked the right question, and then I paid for it. I invested in it. And two, he says, yeah, I do offer coaching service. He didn't tell me that I was the first one initially, but yes, I do offer coaching services, and it was invaluable, and he did a great job. So guys, the greater question here, the greater underlying conversation we need to have is like, ask the right people the right questions. Okay, so yeah, occasionally somebody will say, hey, Ryan, how do I get a hold of you, or how do I email you? Bro, if you can't even go to the website and just figure that out, what are we going to talk about? It's right there. There's a frequently asked questions. Or I had another gentleman say, hey, do you have a podcast on this particular subject? And I said, yeah, I did a podcast on that subject a year ago. You can check it out. He says, which episode is it? I don't know what episode it is. Exert yourself a little bit, guys. Okay, I understand that sometimes it's easier just to ask that person, but just exert yourself. I remember when I was growing up, this was before the age of the internet. I would be working on a book report, and I would ask my mom, Mom, how do you spell encyclopedia? And she'd say, go look in the dictionary. I'm like, Mom, What, you don't know? And I'd taunt her, like, you don't know how to spell it, seeing maybe if that's a tactic where she's like, well, yeah, I'd be able to trick her. Of course, it never worked, right? And she said, go look in the dictionary. Go look in the dictionary. Go look in, and we had this nice set of dictionaries. And so I'd go over there and I'd begrudgingly like look and find and figure out how to spell it. I'm like, okay, got it. Cool. Spell it right. Good. Put it in my book report. But she was teaching me a valuable lesson. The valuable lesson is like, figure it out. Figure it out. I think we've become so accustomed to getting everything we want with the push of a button on these little devices that we've lost a lot of our initiative, our creativity, our resourcefulness. Oh, well, the answer is just right there. I can just text this person or say this thing, and I get it. You want to look for the path of least resistance. I'm not saying make it harder, but like exert yourself to the nth degree. If you do that, even when you're reaching out for when I reached out to Jeff Rose, I went to his website and I found his email. In fact, maybe his email wasn't even on there. Maybe I just Googled his and tried to try. That's how I've gotten podcast guests. So many people have asked, how do you get such great podcast guests? Well, I asked them. Well, I reached out to them and they didn't answer me. Okay, well, figure out another way out. They didn't answer me on Instagram. Cool, get their email. Well, I don't have their email. I don't. Well, find it. It's somewhere. Somebody at some point has emailed them. You can't find it? You can find it. You can find your answer. It's all out there. So use the tools and show some initiative. All right. I felt like a little bit of a soapbox on that one. How are we doing on time? All right, let's take a couple more here. Okay, here's one. In regards to sacrifice towards a greater good for me and mine in life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, how can one gadget? I think that's supposed to say gauge. How can one gauge the level to which a successful outcome is possible without causing further damage, backsliding, financially, or excessive exclusion? Context. Good. I need some context on this one. To relocate out of state for better opportunities and community in our late 40s and 50s, seeing how your success in the similar has inspired a hope and optimistic path. Okay. So, considering in his 40s and 50s, relocating out of state for better opportunities. Look, here's a couple of strategies I would use for gauging outcomes and whether or not the risk is worth a potential reward. Here's what I would say. Okay. Number one, this is a exercise in consciousness. Fast forward 20 years or 30 years. Looking back to today, which decision will you be glad that you made? Again, fast forward 20, 30 years in your life. Looking back, which decision will you be glad that you made? This particularly relates to the question I get a lot, which is, Ryan, I have this opportunity to go to this company and I can make, an extra $10,000 a year and it's a great opportunity. But I'll have to move away from my family and I won't ever see my kids. And, I'll be able to come home on the weekends, but I'll be making great money over here. Okay. Fast forward 20 years, kids are out of the house. You're empty nesters. You can do whatever you want. Looking back on today, which decision will you be glad that you made? And I think chasing the $10,000 is going to be less significant in the grand scheme of things than sticking around and being at little Timmy's baseball game and Susie's piano or dance recital. Sorry, those are gender stereotypes. I'm sorry. Susie's baseball game and Timmy's dance recital. Okay, you get the point, right? Okay, that's number one. That's the first thing I do. Number two, play it out. Play out the worst case scenario. So my family and I, a lot of you guys know, we moved here to Maine 2 years ago. And in fact, it's 2 years ago this month we moved here to Maine. And we played it out. What's the worst possible scenario for moving here to Maine? Well, the worst possible scenario is that we move out here, we hate it, we despise it, we don't have any friends, we don't like it, it's miserable. And then we're cold for 2 years and we move home and maybe we're out $100,000 or something, whatever it comes to with all the costs and everything over 2 years. Okay, is that really that bad? No, it's not bad at all. There's actually very little risk in that. But you know what? I've had a lot of people say, well, Ryan, I'd like to do that, but I've got a job and I've got a family and I've got this and I've got obligations and I've got responsibilities. You don't think I had that shit? I had that too. My wife had that too. She had desires to stay there. She's born and raised in the valley in which we lived. You think it was easy for her or me or my kids to leave? No, of course not. We had all the same things. But we fast forward 20, 30 years and we said, you know what? Here's an opportunity. We have the financial means. I have the flexibility with work to give this a shot. We know a couple of people out there. We've always wanted to move. We have this beautiful home we can purchase. Let's try it. We fast forward to 20, 30 years looking back. Yeah, we're going to be glad that we did this. Even if it didn't work out, we would be glad that we did it because we did it. We tried it. And then I played out the worst possible scenario. The worst possible scenario, okay, it's bad. We're cold for a couple of years. We move home. We get right back into it where we picked up. And we're out 2 years. But we're really not out 2 years because we spent 2 years together. That's not that bad. So I think if you use those two strategies, you're going to start to get a very clear picture of what you should do. I think I already know the answer. I'm not going to say what I think the answer is, but I think you'll come to the right answer, the right conclusion. All right. How are we doing on time? I'm going to take one more. Let me see if I can find one more good one here. Here's one of those questions about dealing with guys that may not agree with your ideas and philosophies. Again, I don't care. They don't have to. I mean, I want to share what I want to share, and I would like these guys to take this to heart, and hopefully it'll improve their lives to some degree. But again, it's not my responsibility to save people who are uninterested in being saved. Okay, I like this one because I actually made a post about this on Instagram just yesterday. So this is from Joe Langley one. He said, I would like to hear your thoughts on encouraging kids to follow in the family business versus building something on their own. Guys, I've never expected my children do the same things that I do. Never expected or demanded that they be interested in the same things I am. I've never mocked or ridiculed or poked or made fun of their own interests and hobbies and activities because we're all different. Everybody's different. Even my own kids who are around me all the time. They're influenced by me. They're probably inspired to varying degrees by me, but they don't have to follow in my exact footsteps. I hope there's principles that they learn from me and my wife, their mother, that are going to help serve them. You know, I hope that's the case. But those are principles. Those aren't exact strategies or tactics or the way that they live their life. If my oldest son wants to be a veterinarian and my youngest son wants to drive race cars and my daughter wants to be a preschool teacher, like, cool, that's great. Do that. My job is to support you in that, not support you in doing what I want you to do. I always thought I'd be the dad who's like, you have to play football because football. I don't care if you play football. That's my sport. That's what I liked, football and baseball when I grew up. Okay. So I would love you to play football and baseball, but if you want to play lacrosse and run track, awesome. I want you to do that. I would love for one of my children to be involved in this business in the order of man. I would love one or more or all of them to be involved in this. But if they're like, Dad, that's not my thing. Like, I'd rather go travel the world and help people in poverty, or I want to become a doctor, or I want to race cars or be a veteran or whatever. Good. I think that's wonderful. It's my hope that what I do here with Order of Man and just the way I show up as a father gives you everything that you need to be able to chase and pursue your own interests and passions and desires. And that's good. That's how it should be, actually. That's the beauty of freedom. That's the beauty of, well, at least some of the beauty of the country that we live in. You're not obligated to do it one way. You're not obligated to follow my footsteps. You're not obligated to do it the way the government tells you to do it. You are obligated to follow your own passions, desires, and heart. I think that's a moral obligation you have, a moral responsibility at a minimum. So do that. And I'll help you. I'll support you. I'll clear the path. I won't clear it completely, but I'll make sure it's done in a controlled environment so you can learn effectively so that when you are out on your own, you can have the results and the success you desire. All right, guys, great questions today. Really good questions. I hope I gave you some good answers. Some better than others, I'm sure. But yeah, keep them coming. We're going to be back on Friday for our Friday Field Notes. Remember, just support what we're doing here. Share this podcast, share the book, share the social media profiles, take a screenshot. That actually goes a long way. If you just take a screenshot of this particular podcast, whether you're listening on YouTube or Apple or Spotify or wherever you're doing the podcast thing, take a screenshot. Tag me at Ryan Mickler on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Instagram mostly, that's where I'm most active. That goes a long way. Check out the Legacy event, the father-son event between the boys between the ages of 8 to 15. That's September 23rd through the 26th, 2021 here on my property in Maine. orderofman.com/legacy. ordinarman.com/legacy. All right, guys, we'll be back on Friday. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.